We all know that one person. The guy at work who couldn't pour water out of a boot if the instructions were written on the heel. The absolute unmitigated dipshit who somehow, defying all laws of physics, logic, and common sense, just keeps getting promoted. It's a phenomenon we call failing upward. You see it in tech. You see it in finance. But nobody, and I mean nobody in the history of human civilization, has ever failed upward quite as strikingly or as reluctantly as Major General Ambrose Everett Burnside. Look at this man. Look at this aggressive, gravity-defying face pelt. His facial hair was so profoundly weird that society literally looked at it, inverted his name, and coined the term sideburns. That is the level of chaotic energy we are dealing with today. Welcome back to Audacious History. Today we are looking at the patron saint of Imposter Syndrome. But here's the twist. Burnside's Imposter Syndrome was 100% mathematically justified. He wasn't a secret genius doubting himself. He was a genuinely mediocre military commander who knew exactly how incompetent he was. He begged his bosses to stop promoting him. He explicitly warned them that if they gave him more power, he would absolutely ruin everything and get thousands of people killed. And what did the United States government do? They forced him into command, watched him trigger some of the most horrific bloodbaths of the American Civil War, and then elected his ass to the United States Senate. Totally makes sense, right? Strap in, history nerds. It's going to be a bumpy, muddy, blood-soaked ride. Let's rewind a bit. Ambrose Burnside wasn't born a disaster. He was born in Indiana in 1824, went to West Point, and was generally considered a pretty nice guy. Like golden retriever energy. Everyone liked Ambrose. He was gregarious, he threw great parties, and he genuinely cared about his friends. After a brief stint in the military, he tried to invent a new type of rifle, the Burnside carbine. And guess what? It was actually a pretty decent gun. But because Ambrose possessed the business acumen of a concussed toddler, his company completely went bankrupt. He was destitute. He had to sell his patents. Who bailed him out? None other than George B. McClellan, a fellow West Point grad and future rival who got Burnside a job at the Illinois Central Railroad. Keep McClellan in mind. He's the smug, overcautious roadblock that will soon ruin Burnside's life by sheer contrast. When the Civil War breaks out in 1861, Burnside organizes a regiment of Rhode Island volunteers. They head down to the first Battle of Bull Run. The Union gets their absolute asses handed to them, but Burnside performs okay. He doesn't shit his pants. He holds the line decently well. In the grand scheme of early Union commanders, who were mostly political appointees with the tactical brilliance of a ham sandwich, not shitting your pants made you Alexander the fucking Great. So he gets promoted. In early 1862, he leads an amphibious assault on the coast of North Carolina. And folks, by some miracle, Burnside absolutely crushes it. He captures Roanoke Island. He captures New Bern. He secures a massive strategic foothold for the Union Navy. The Northern press goes wild. Finally, a Union general who actually wins. Abraham Lincoln is doing backflips in the Oval Office. But this success was the worst thing that could have possibly happened to Ambrose Burnside. Because now, the bigwigs in Washington thought he was a tactical genius. Burnside, however, knew the truth. He looked at his North Carolina campaign and basically thought, wow, I got super lucky there. Let's never, ever do that again. By late 1862, the Union Army of the Potomac, the biggest, most important army in the East, is being led by George B. McClellan. McClellan is a fantastic organizer, but a pathological coward in battle. He has a chronic case of what Lincoln called the slows. Lincoln is begging McClellan to attack Robert E. Lee, and McClellan is basically responding with, "Sorry, I can't. My horse has a tummy ache." Lincoln is desperate. He needs a fighter. He looks around the room and his eyes land on the guy with the majestic face sweaters. Lincoln offers Burnside command of the Army of the Potomac. Now, in the history of the military, when the commander-in-chief offers you the top job, you take it. You salute. You say, "Yes, Mr. President," and you try to win the war. But not Ambrose. Ambrose actively recoils. He turns it down. He says, and I am paraphrasing, but only slightly, "Mr. President, I love you, I love this country, but I am entirely unqualified for this command. Please do not give me this army." Lincoln thinks he's just being modest. A few months pass. McClellan continues to be utterly useless. Lincoln comes back to Burnside, offers it again. Burnside turns it down again. But then comes November 1862. Lincoln has finally had enough of McClellan's bullshit. He fires him. And this time, he isn't asking Burnside, he is ordering him. Let's set the scene. It's early November. The emissary from the War Department arrives at Burnside's tent in the freezing cold. He hands over the orders. Burnside reads them, and his heart physically sinks into his boots. He takes a train to Washington. He marches into the White House. If we were to translate this historical meeting into modern, honest English, the confrontation between Abraham Lincoln and Ambrose Burnside went exactly like this. "Ambrose, my boy, good news! I just fired McClellan out of a cannon into the sun. You're up. The Army of the Potomac is yours. Go crush Robert E. Lee." "Mr. President, with all due respect, no, absolutely not." "What do you mean, no? It's an order, Ambrose. You're the guy. You took Roanoke. You're a fighter." "Sir, I captured a swamp from a few bored Confederates. Controlling the Army of the Potomac means managing 120,000 men, cavalry, artillery, supply lines. Mr. President, I am not smart enough to do this." "Nonsense! That's just the imposter syndrome talking. You're being humble. I love humility in a general." "It is not humility, Abraham. It is an objective fact. I lack the intellectual capacity to maneuver a force of this size. If you put me in charge of these men, I will march them into a meat grinder. I am a solid brigade commander. I am a decent corps commander. I am not an army commander. Do not give me the fucking keys to the car. I will crash the car into a wall of Confederate artillery." "Look, Ambrose, the press loves you. The troops like you. And more importantly, you aren't McClellan. Just take the damn job." "I am begging you, on my knees. I am a mid-tier intellect with a catastrophic facial hair situation. If you make me do this, thousands of boys are going to die because my brain literally cannot process troop movements on this scale. Please fire me, demote me, send me back to Rhode Island to make guns that don't work." "See you in Virginia, General. Don't fuck it up." Spoiler alert, he fucked it up. So Burnside takes command, and to his credit, his initial plan was actually kind of brilliant. He decided to fake out Robert E. Lee, march his army incredibly fast down to Fredericksburg, Virginia, cross the Rappahannock River, and march straight on the Confederate capital of Richmond before Lee even knew what hit him. The Army of the Potomac moves with lightning speed. They reach the river in record time. Lee is completely out of position. The road to Richmond is wide open. All Burnside has to do is walk across the river. There's just one tiny, minuscule, horrifying problem. He forgot the boats. Well, he didn't forget them. The War Department fucked up the logistics. Burnside needed pontoon bridges to cross the river. He sent the order, but due to a bureaucratic nightmare back in Washington, the pontoons were delayed by nearly 3 weeks. Now, a smart general, a flexible general, would have adapted, found a ford, adjusted the plan. But remember what Burnside told Lincoln? I lacked the intellectual capacity to maneuver. Once the plan hit a snag, Burnside's brain simply blue-screened. He sat on the banks of the river for almost 3 weeks, twiddling his thumbs, waiting for the boats. And what did Robert E. Lee do during those 3 weeks? He casually marched his entire army to Fredericksburg. He positioned his men on top of Mary's Heights, a massive fortified hill overlooking the town. He built trenches. He placed interlocking fields of artillery fire. Confederate General James Longstreet literally told Lee, "A chicken could not live on that field when we open on it." The boats finally arrive. Does Burnside say, hey, maybe attacking a heavily fortified hill is a bad idea now? No, he sticks to the original plan. In December 1862, he orders his men across the river and launches them straight into the teeth of the Confederate defenses. It was a slaughter, a horrifying, unforgivable slaughter. Union soldiers marched across an open field, uphill, into a literal wall of lead. Burnside watched the massacre from a headquarters across the river. And the tragedy of Ambrose Burnside is that he wasn't a sociopath. He wasn't callous. He loved his men. Watching them get ripped to shreds broke his mind. He broke down crying. He paced his tent, sobbing. Oh, those men over there. I am thinking of them all the time. He was so distraught that the next morning he decided he was going to personally lead a suicidal charge of his old Rhode Island regiment into the guns, fully intending to die in battle to atone for his stupidity. His subordinate generals literally had to physically restrain him and talk him out of it. 12,600 Union soldiers became casualties because of a man who begged not to be put in charge. But wait, it gets dumber. A month later, in January 1863, Burnside tries to redeem himself. He launches a winter offensive to flank Lee. As soon as the army starts moving, the skies open up. It rains for days. The roads turn into bottomless pits of Virginia clay. Horses sink up to their chests. Men lose their boots. Whole artillery pieces are swallowed by the earth. It becomes known in history as the infamous Mud March. The Confederates literally stood on the other side of the river holding up giant signs that said, "Burnside's army stuck in the mud." The humiliation was total. Burnside's own generals mutinied, sneaking off to Washington to tell Lincoln that Burnside was a raving lunatic. Finally, mercifully, Lincoln relieved Burnside of the command of the Army of the Potomac. Hey, if you're enjoying this absolute circus of a history lesson, do me a massive favor. Hit that subscribe button down below. It really helps out the channel. Now back to the story. So Burnside is fired from the top job. A normal government would say, okay, he's done. Give him a desk job counting hardtack. Not the U.S. government. They send him out west for a bit, where he actually does an okay job defending Knoxville, which unfortunately revitalizes his reputation. By 1864, he is brought back east under Ulysses S. Grant to command the Ninth Corps during the Siege of Petersburg. The Siege of Petersburg is a brutal, grinding trench war. The Union Army is stuck outside the city. The Confederate defenses are impenetrable. But then, a regiment of Pennsylvania coal miners in Burnside's corps comes up with a wild idea. "Hey, General," they say, What if we dig a massive tunnel under the Confederate lines, pack it with 4 tons of gunpowder, and blow them to kingdom come? Burnside loves it. He advocates for it. He gets the green light. He trains a specialized division of United States Colored Troops, the USCT, for weeks to execute the assault. The plan is flawless. Blow the mine, the trained black troops will rush around the massive crater, secure the high ground, and break the siege. It was the best plan Burnside ever had. But remember, Burnside is cursed. Less than 24 hours before the explosion, General George Meade and General Grant step in. They tell Burnside he cannot use the black troops. Why? Because if the plan fails, abolitionists in the North would accuse the generals of using black soldiers as cannon fodder. Burnside is panicked. His trained troops are benched. He has to pick a replacement division of white troops. How does he choose which division will lead this incredibly dangerous, highly technical assault? He literally makes his generals draw straws. I shit you not. The fate of the battle was decided by a fucking lottery. The general who draws the short straw is a guy named James Ledlie. Ledlie is a known coward and an aggressive alcoholic. He doesn't bother to brief his men on the plan. At 4:44 a.m. on July 30th, 1864, the mine detonates. It is the largest man-made explosion in history up to that point. It blows a massive hole in the Confederate line, 170 feet long and 30 feet deep. The Confederate defenders are vaporized or running for their lives. The door to Petersburg is wide open. And what do the Union troops do? Under the leadership of General Ledlie, who is currently hiding in a bunker behind the lines drinking a bottle of rum, the Union soldiers charge out of their trenches and run directly into the bottom of the crater. They treat the crater like a massive trench, but it's a trap. They can't climb the steep walls. Thousands of Union soldiers are packed into a dirt bowl. The Confederates recover from the shock, walk up to the edge of the crater, look down at the mass of trapped Union soldiers, and basically say, "Well, look at this shooting gallery." They start lobbing artillery shells and firing down into the pit. It is a massacre. General Grant later called it the saddest affair I have witnessed in the war. And who took the blame? The guy who technically oversaw it, Ambrose Burnside. He was finally, permanently, absolutely sent on leave by Ulysses S. Grant. The military had finally listened to what Burnside had been telling them for 3 straight years. I am a hazard to myself and others. Now, if you were responsible for the slaughter at Fredericksburg and the catastrophic clusterfuck of the crater, you'd probably retreat to a cabin in the woods, shave your ridiculous face, and live out your days apologizing to trees. But this is America. We don't punish failure. We put it on a ballot. After the war, Burnside returns to Rhode Island. And the people of Rhode Island, possessing the collective memory of a goldfish, welcome him back as a conquering hero. In 1866, they elect him governor. Not just once, 3 times. He serves 3 one-year terms as the governor of Rhode Island. In 1871, he helps found a little organization called the National Rifle Association, becoming its first president. Because who better to lead a marksmanship organization than a guy who literally designed a gun that bankrupted him and oversaw the worst shooting gallery in American history? But the failing upward wasn't complete. In 1874, the state of Rhode Island sends Ambrose Burnside to Washington, D.C. to serve as a United States Senator. Because of course they did. He sits in the very same city where he once stood before Abraham Lincoln, crying and begging not to be given responsibility. Now he was voting on the laws of the land. He served in the Senate until his death in 1881, loved by his colleagues, respected by his constituents, and forever cemented in history as a man whose name is synonymous with face hair and tactical disasters. Ambrose Burnside is a historical anomaly. He wasn't evil. He wasn't even arrogant. He was a deeply ordinary, pleasant man who achieved a level of catastrophic historical infamy simply because the people above him refused to listen to him. He is the patron saint of knowing your limits, a warning to bosses everywhere. When your employee looks you dead in the eye and says, "If you promote me, I will set the building on fire," you should probably believe them. Thank you so much for watching Audacious History. If you know someone suffering from imposter syndrome, send them this video to remind them that no matter how bad they think they are at their job, they will never be Battle of the Crater bad. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below telling me which historical disaster I should cover next. Until next time, keep your head down, and for the love of God, don't let anyone promote you against your will. See you guys.